And welcome back, everybody, to the Podcaster Nation. That's right. I said welcome back because I know you were just listening to our stuff and you came back because you wanted to hear some more. That's a brilliant move, folks. Absolutely brilliant because we have a lot more. Now, why do we have a lot more for you? Because this is the podcast. It's about podcasters. It's for podcasters. It's done by podcasters. And you cracked the code. Our guest today is, in fact, a podcaster, amongst many other fantastic things. Cannot wait to unpack all of this with this guest. Folks, this is the place where we all come together to raise each other up. This is the place where the rising tide truly raises all ships. So let's get sailing and bring in this gentleman who is here with us today. He's a speaker. He's an author of several books, including a new one, which we're going to talk about today. He's a podcaster, host of the Grampion podcast. He's a fighter pilot, apparently, which I can't wait to hear about. He's a CEO, and he's the Grampion to 18 different kids, grandkids. I can't even get it out because I'm so incredibly impressed with that. That's just absolutely fantastic. So we're going to hear all about all those things. Folks, please welcome to the show, Jim Tracy. Jim, how are you doing today, brother?
Wow, I am doing awesome, better than I deserve, Rory, and I'm grateful for you inviting me on, man. It's an honor.
Thank you so much. The honor is
Yeah.
mine. I mean, you have been honestly, I didn't even get through all of your accomplishments and awards and everything else. It would have taken me 15 minutes of talk time. Jim, before we get into unpacking all this stuff about you, give our listeners an idea in case they don't know who you are. Um, who is Jim Tracy? You know
Okay.
what are you about? What do you do? What brings you here, brother?
All right, so I'm not a fighter pilot. I got to get that out in front. I was trained by a fighter pilot, actually a couple of fighter pilots, and those are always cool stories. But I'm a guy who lived the American dream. I started out as a welder, and I got married, and I was headed for Alaska and got married instead. And I was going to go weld on the pipeline, and my father-in-law looked at me, my future father-in-law looked at me and said, "Hey, dude, you're gonna marry my daughter. Where are you going to college?" And I'm like, anywhere you want. If that's the price of entry, I'm all in. So 45 some years ago, I got married, had 5 kids, went through a few careers, some good, some not so good, and then started a company with my son when he was 17. We raised that to a few hundred people and 5 locations, merged it in a private equity deal, and yeah, I've just like I said, I've lived the American dream, every portion of it. Had a boss one time from England, and he said, "America is the last bastion of capitalism on the planet." And he was right. So, unabashedly unashamed of America, live the American dream, and I'm still living it. One of my grandsons called me Grampion, and it stuck. And it was a combination of grandpa and champion. And last weekend, I ran a 5K terrain race, the Muddy Dash in Boise with 5 of my grandkids and a son-in-law. And I didn't win, but I finished
Wow, muddy dash. Is that a tough
the
mudder
Muddy
type
Dash.
thing, or is that
Kind of like that.
a
Yeah, it's
no?
an obstacle. It's an obstacle course with a 5K in between.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
I give you credit. I walked a 5K on Thanksgiving, and I thought that was fantastic. So
yeah.
that's
Well,
amazing.
you know what? People say that you're supposed to like find a rocking chair on the porch, and I just don't find that fascinating at all. So at 66 years old, man, I got to keep going. We got to keep this audacious life rolling.
Okay, wow. You're 66? No kidding.
Yeah. Mhm.
Man. All right, and you're running 5Ks. You know what? I power to you. Mad respect. Right there. Oh my
I
goodness.
didn't run all the way. Fair word.
I love that. All
Yeah.
right. I love the building a business with your son. What led to that, if you don't mind talking
Yeah.
about it a little.
So no, not at all. My son, when I was a kid, I was in the tower business. I built electrical substations and electrical power lines across northern Minnesota. And so my son was always a little fascinated with that. And when he was just getting out of high school, he got in the tower business with another relative of his. And I went out to their job site. And I thought, wow, somebody's going to get killed out here. So they were not very safe. They were all young and full of fire and all kinds of axle grease with not a lot of experience. And And so anyway, I stuck my spurs into him pretty good, and I said, you gotta knock this off. You're gonna have to quit this. And he said, I'm not quitting my job. I like it. I get paid a lot of money for what I do. And one night he came home and said, if you're so smart, let's just do it ourselves. And we did, and that started with a father and son, and ended up with a couple hundred employees in 4 locations across the Northwest. We merged that into private equity, and yeah, live the American dream.
That's amazing. I mean, I think that's every father's dream, in some
Yeah,
capacity is to actually, build a business or have a business with your son
yeah.
like that. I mean, that legacy thing. So now you sold that off. Is that what happened?
Well, we sold it off. We're still shareholders in part of it, but we kind of merged it together with people who were like-minded with us, and then it rolled again. So I'm not a part of that business anymore, but I'm still engaged with my son in a couple of the other businesses that we started. So,
I
yeah,
see. All right.
yeah.
Speaking of other businesses that you've started, I read someplace here that you are considered the curator of culture.
hmm
So that's working with other businesses to increase or improve their company culture. Is that what I'm picking up?
Yeah, one of the things that I found, I was head of our trade association for a number of years, the National Association of Tower Erectors or Communications Infrastructure People.
Hmm.
And there's 12, 1,300 companies that are members there. And what I found that happened is this as companies grew, they lost the vision for what they wanted to be when they grew up. And so I help C-suites and executive teams return to what it is you always wanted to be. Because, if you want to be a family company, even when you grow up and you scale it and you get bigger, you still want it to be a family-oriented company, a family-friendly company. I mean, if you want spit and polish, then let's look at what would return you to the spit and polish image that you want. But your vision when you found a company sometimes get lost in the growth. And growth is important. Growth is the vehicle that we use to advance our businesses, but it's not always the thing that you're looking for, not always what you wanted to be. So we just revive those cultures and then bring them back and let the founders run them instead of, Harvard MBAs.
That's interesting. So you're working with the folks who own the company to try and change the culture from the top.
hmm
And result then is that the culture changes for the folks who are working there.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people ask like, "Hey man, you just walk in or take the elevator up to the ivory tower." I'm like, "No, man. I come in with jeans on and I spend some time and I walk in the back door. You'd be shocked how many businesses where I went in the back door and spent some time among their people without anybody even asking who I was." And the back door is a euphemism for the office floor, the shop floor, the whatever your business is. Mostly service related businesses, they tend to suffer a disintegration of the why over time. And so let's get back to that why we're doing it. And that's what we do. We help people do that.
Interesting. That's got to be, I mean, I can see how difficult that may be given, sort of the culture in the country, right now, where
Yeah.
it's like everybody's pitting everybody against one another.
Yeah.
Did you run into any of that where it's like, oh, big business is the bad guy or, that type of thing?
I think if you look at the broad cross section of companies that I've consulted with, what you'll find is a little bit of everything. But what you touched on a bit is the tension that exists.
Hmm.
And it exists between labor and management, between accounting and finance and administration, between the ivory tower and the basement and everywhere in between. And the single thing that we have to get back to, not just in America, but specifically in American businesses, is our why. And I think Simon Sinek does a wonderful job of explaining it, but every founder could do that and should do that. Let's go back and say, when you were coming up in this, like if you ask me about my business legacy, why did you start it? I started it to keep my son safe. And then I kept it going to keep my employees safe. And if you do all those little things about safety well, then you do a lot of the big things well, because the little things kind of take care of the big things. And if you can return your focus to what you wanted to be when you grow up, which is kind of a little colloquialism that we use in the blueprint. It really is a fantastic tool.
That's awesome. I mean, I love that there's companies out there that are open to that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It seems like that compassion in company culture
Mm,
has sort of, really taken a back seat to just,
yeah.
production and everybody hating everybody else and the tension in the
Yeah.
country and that kind of thing. But that's interesting, that
You
you're
know,
able
when
to
I
do that.
sit, yeah, when I sit with CEOs, one of the hard questions I ask them is, do you love your employees? And they're like, well, yeah. And then the question begets another question, a deeper probing question. Do they know it? And then if
Uh,
they know it, how do they know it? And if they know it, and this is how they know it, do they actually feel it? Because
right.
when you get down to those kind of really core level gut issues, people ask me when I was a CEO, they're like, now you got 150 employees. What do you do with your time? I'm like, I do the most important job, and the most important job I had over 23 years was writing a birthday card to every single employee, every birthday that they had. And a handwritten card from the boss that goes to their house. All of a sudden, their wife is going, hey, your boss must really like you. You must be really important. Now we get the home front buying in too. So when I talk about culture, this is not like this magic formula. It's a blueprint. Just like you build a house, just like you build a commercial building, you build a business and you build it one stick, one brick at a time. And it's not that hard. It just takes a little discipline.
Nice. Like you said, the little things, something as
Yeah.
simple as a birthday card that you write
Yeah.
by hand and that you don't
Yeah.
shop out to have your assistant do it or something.
Yeah, my most important job. Now, I have to be honest, when it got to that many, I didn't write the address out. They came to me with a stack of birthday cards and a stack but I did write every birthday card to every person.
That's wonderful. No,
Yeah,
I love that. I love that you're working on the little things like that and
yeah,
trying to help people do that. That's so cool.
yeah.
All right. Now, to that end, you had something called the Culture Revival Blueprint. Is that something that's
hmm
provided to the executives then, or is that something that goes to the workers also?
That really is up to the executives, and it depends a little bit upon the style of leader they are. It depends a little bit on the culture they wanted when they started the business, and it's basically a blueprint that says, "Hey, let's build the building back that you wanted to, and then let's just, if it's scaled up, let's just go back and say, hey, what is it that we would do over again?" So sometimes the blueprint is a remodel, and sometimes it's starting fresh. And it really is something that we develop that says, let's investigate the business and then let's investigate the processes that drove the business somewhere where it didn't want to go. Sometimes it's simply growth. Sometimes you grow so much and you're like, hey, we're all just so busy. Well, guess what? Busy is never too busy to care for people and to love people.
Nice.
You use the word compassion, that everything. I mean, do I care more about you than I do about me? Yeah, it's kind of
Hmm.
golden rule stuff. This is as old as J.C. Penney. I mean, the guy, Jonathan Cash Penny.
The guy, right? Not just the store. I love that.
Yeah.
All right. Now, you said that, if I can segue a little bit, you somewhere along the way, but decided you wanted to become an author. And so you
hmm
started writing books. Are the
Yeah.
books based on or inspired by the business that you had been doing before, or are they inspired by something totally different?
One coming out in February is inspired exactly by the business that I was in, and that one is called Management by Cliche: Business Proverbs That Worked, and that's with Morgan James right now, and they are publishing that like next February, I think. But the one that just came out has a lot of stories from my business career in it, and that one is called Building Men: Character Lessons from Influencers. Just collections of stories about people that really invested in me. And then I put a character trait alongside of each one of those individuals, or sometimes they're little groups of individuals. But it just hit bestseller on three separate categories, and it's really doing well on Audible. Apparently, people like listening to Tim Dixon, who's my narrator. And funny story, I auditioned for my own book and was not selected. So the guy who did it is really an amazing narrator, except he mispronounced my mother's name.
Oh no.
Yeah, my brother's got me about that one, but hey, it's all right. He does a fantastic job.
I mean, when you farm that out, some things are bound to happen, and I
Hey,
understand
you
that.
know
But
what? Best of both worlds. You don't have to listen to me.
well, so if someone else was selecting that, then you went the publishing route in terms of more traditional, working with a
Yeah.
publisher instead of self-publishing, right?
Yeah, I have a 3 book deal with Morgan James,
Hmm.
and they have been just a fantastic resource for. I mean, I don't know the book business, so I don't want to learn another business. I got enough things to do.
Right?
I got to learn the podcast business, like,
I was going
and
to
from a
say,
non-technical side.
right, leave that to Morgan James. That's why you bring
Yeah,
them in. They can handle it. So
yeah.
I love that. Okay, so the one book was about the business, this one about building men. What made you want to write that?
Um, as I looked back over the course of my life, people often ask, they're like, "Man, you did so well." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm overnight success. It only took 66 years." But I go back all the way to my grandpa, and part of what drove me to this was when I talked to groups, I found that the younger groups, you look at these old people and you think like, well, man, he's just going to be an old boring dude. I just tell stories. And the people who are drawn to those old cool stories always happen to end up being millennials and Gen Ys, and they're the ones who flood up to me after the presentations are over and like, hey, when you talked about this guy, how does that relate to my life here? Or when you impact people, they walk up to you and say, hey, here's the part of my life that is really deep and personal and sometimes private. And can you help me with this? And it's just amazing. It's just amazing how much uh, people will long to have someone to talk to. And and if you can impact them, especially as a group, um, all that led me to write Building Men. All of my experience is attributable to learning from someone else. There's two kinds of learning for me. The first one is that hard-headed learning. It's very high tuition. It's called training by trauma.
Mm.
And the lessons are very harsh, but they're pretty permanent. And the lessons come after the test. So it makes it a very formidable learning environment. Now the other ones are learning from someone else's experience, and that's low tuition learning. And if you listen and adopt those lessons, the lessons come before the test, and so you're more likely to pass. And so as I look at all those people, there's 20 chapters, and each chapter is a character trait. Like I had a teacher. There's a chapter called Teacher. His name is John Devine, and he was a welding teacher for me when I was in high school. And then he was a leader of a club called VICA, the Vocational Industrial Clubs of America, and I participated in that. And so he coached me there, and then I worked for him for a while, and then I was a competitor for a while, and then we were side by side in an industry trade association, and I just walked through all the lessons that teacher taught me over the 30 or 40 years that we were associated with one another. And I'm so grateful to him for those lessons. And those are some of the cool stories that you get in the book.
Nice. Very nice. I can appreciate your analogy about the different, colleges and the high tuition model. And,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I haven't graduated from that yet. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think I'm right there with you.
There's
But
still brick walls out there for me, man.
if we can just stop beating our heads on them, I think we might be all right.
Exactly.
But I love that. So now, when you start talking about, the building men and how that all worked and those stories, is that what led to the Grampion podcast and the launch of that, or how did those two things were those related?
They were not related. The Grampian podcast. So I went down to our shop one time, and I was out in the shop, and I saw somebody, and I thought, man, I don't know that person. Like they work for me. I mean,
Mhm.
I know everybody's name. I know everybody's wife's name. Usually, a lot of times, their kids' names. And we've got this small family business, and there's this dude, and I don't know him. And then we moved that to 3 locations, and all of a sudden, there were people who didn't know me. They didn't know how I thought. They didn't know what was important to me. And so I had to recreate a way that I could communicate with them. And so we started out with simply audio, and we did a literally a live call-in show, 15 minutes a week, called Legacy Radio. And funny story, my one of my guys, he said, you can't do this live, Jim. You're gonna get questions that you don't want to answer. I'm like, come on. I'm never gonna get a question I don't want to answer. So we're in like the third week or something, and somebody calls up and it's like, hey, Mr. Tracy, I was just wondering, could I ask you a question? I'm like, sure. He says, how much money do you make? Like, well, that's a great question. How much money do you make? And he said, well, I wouldn't want to say in front of all these people. I said, well, good, me neither. Next question.
There you go.
So when we talked to our folks, it was a great help. And all of a sudden, we found that they actually loved hearing from the boss. And so we'd have topics that were related to the business, that were related to, hey, let's do 4th of July and we'll do fire safety, and let's do, you know, winter is here. It's going to be November now. We're going to be working the snow. Let's talk about staying warm and dry. And, we did lots of snowcat work. And so a lot of being safe, but a lot of it was, again, I'm going to return back to that question. Why is it important to be safe? Well, it's important to be safe so that the family that loves you gets to see you tonight. And when we can really focus in like a laser beam on that, and then let them know that your buddies on the crew with you, they're counting on you to watch their back too. And all of a sudden, that legacy radio, then we merged in, and we had 1,000 employees. Then it went to video. It was not live. So we recorded a video called On Radio, and then we had people that were calling in, and they were writing in, and they were saying, "Hey, can I get on your calls? Your calls are really good." And so we opened it up to the whole industry. That was called On Radio, and then when I left that, I missed it. I missed just talking to people about what's important, and so that's where the Grampion comes along.
Hmm. All right. So if somebody, I mean, it's a great story. If somebody tunes into the Grampian, what are they expecting to be met with?
You know, uh, it, we had to come up with another little sidebar reason, and so we did, and it's Grandpa Chats with Champions. And so champions of business, champions of aviation, champions of culture. My latest one that we just filmed has Justin Astro Elliott, and he's the feature on a Netflix documentary that came out last May on the Air Force Thunderbirds, and
Oh, wow.
he is Thunderbird One, the team leader and the commander of the U.S. Air Force demonstration team, the mighty Thunderbirds. And so, yeah, we did a podcast with him, and it's going to be fantastic. So
Oh, that's great.
he's a champion just because he serves his country, if for nothing else.
Oh, of course, 100%.
Yeah.
It was see, I listened to a couple episodes, and that's what I saw, whereas you were featuring
Hmm.
these men, and who had accomplished these things, and so that's what made me think it was related to the book. But I understand the subtle difference with what you're doing there.
Yeah.
So,
Men and women.
okay,
Yeah.
again, not
Me
trying to be
too.
exclusive. I just didn't happen to see that when I checked out the podcast. So,
You know what?
you know,
Somebody called me and they're like, you don't have enough women on there. And I'm like, it's not for fear of asking or for lack of trying. Maybe I'm just a little bit too looking in the wrong place or something like that. But I really am trying, and we have a pretty open door policy. So
there
yeah,
you go. Absolutely. All
I
right.
need to be more sensitive, maybe.
I mean, it is an issue in today's world, so it's probably
Hey,
probably good that you're paying attention to that. But
yeah,
no, it's like I said, I just listened to a couple of episodes. I wanted to get a feel for what the podcast was, and a
yeah,
couple of these guys sort of stood out. But um,
yeah.
the as you're doing that podcast, and I know you want to feature these guys and everything, is this in a way for your grandkids, to be like listening to these almost role models? Or who
Yeah.
is your target audience, and what's the purpose behind doing this other than fun for you?
Yeah, well, it is fun, and I'd like to make a shilling at or two at it. So that's always there. But it really was a methodology for me to reach beyond my COVID home, my COVID cocoon.
Right.
And what I found is that the impact that I got in front of the microphone was very similar to the impact that I was having from the stage.
Nice.
And I've spoke in front of, I mean, if you want to really, you want some stage fright, I stood up in front of 2,500 of my peers at a trade association banquet and did an auction and have spoken for them many times. But boy, that's all of a sudden some real pressure. But it's also impact, and when you can impact them so that they make a better choice or choose to do the right thing, hey man, that's gold. I'll take that every day. I found the same impact in front of the microphone. People get back with me and they're just like, "Hey, this is important because." And if you're really listening, the because is very gratifying.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. You seem to be very involved in legacy,
Uh-huh.
too, starting this with you. I mean, even the name of the business and,
Right.
starting a company with your son. Podcasting is going to be around long after we're gone,
Oh
too,
yeah.
which is kind of nice also. So, with 18 grandkids, that might not be a bad thing for them.
That really, in many ways, with my youngest daughter is pregnant with twin girls right now, and if I go out the front door and get hit by a bus, they can actually read that book, Building Men, and they can figure out what was important to me,
Mhm.
what was important to the generations, and even two generations in front of me. So it does lay out kind of a legacy and a history,
Yeah,
but it does so for a specific reason. Those 20 character traits are really important in today's society. The thing that shocked me about it was we came up as the number one new release in single parenting. Now, I've been married for 45 years, so that wasn't my intended audience. That wasn't by any means my target audience. But it just goes to show that the people out there in America are looking for information and help on how to raise and rear kids. And if this can help them, man, I'm all about that.
I love that. I think you're right too. I think that there is a big move right now for parents who want to parent with a little more purpose.
Yeah,
And so something like
for
your book,
sure.
yeah, definitely could help them with that. That's great.
Yeah,
That's
right on.
awesome. Love that.
And the podcast too. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So and now with this podcast, I know you've done 350 plus episodes amongst various podcasts, but this one's been around for a while. This isn't, a brand new one
Uh-huh.
or anything, right? How long you been doing the Grampian?
A couple of years, and I was not as consistent as I should have been at the get-go. And I brought in some industry folks that I knew, but all of a sudden it really started to click. And when you establish consistency, all of a sudden then the audience comes around as well. So
Right. Yeah.
they learn
No,
to trust you, I think.
yeah, you've definitely been doing it for a second. You can
Yeah.
tell you know what you're doing. I mean, I love your style on the podcast too. It's very laid back, conversational, kind of like somebody else I know. But I do
Yeah.
I enjoy it. It's you tell a good story. Um, a couple
Well, I
podcasting
learned it from
questions.
you.
Oh, yeah. Hey, you can tell as many people as you want that. I'll take it. I will eat. I'll eat that
All
up.
right.
As you
Okay.
have put the podcast together, and as you do that, how do you go about promoting the podcast to try and, what has worked for you, what hasn't, that type of thing?
I really haven't. I do it a bit on social media. I mean,
Hmm.
it's kind of LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I just put the episodes up. I think it's really important to tie the person that we're interviewing inexorably to this podcast. Because at the end of the day, if you're doing a podcast and you think it's about you, you've made a really, really big mistake.
Yeah.
Unless you're a superstar. I mean, if you're Michael Jordan and you did a podcast, people are actually going to listen for Michael Jordan. But if you're Jim Tracy and you're going to do a podcast, you better bring a pretty good guest and you better hope that they really like the questions that you asked. And if you try to make it, a lot of people try to make it um, entertaining. And that goes part and parcel with being informational. So, hooks and gotchas and things like that aren't really a part of what we do. And we're just trying to provide information and entertainment and that blesses people.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
So,
All right. That might be the first time I've ever had anybody say, I don't really promote my podcast.
yeah.
That's a great answer. So
I guess on social media I do, but yeah, that's a little bit.
that's perfect. You mentioned you wouldn't mind making a shilling or two, off the
hmm
podcast. Have you looked into
hmm
monetization, things like that? And if so, how's that gone?
Well, we've got some sponsors that have stepped in, and we're in the early stages of that. I didn't really, I question. One of the things that I do is I really am insistent that I don't advertise any product that I don't absolutely love. And so we've got a couple of
Right.
services that we've used and some products that we've used that are starting to come on the podcast now. And so I'm just grateful that people think that I would be a good spokesman for them.
That's great. That is
Yeah.
great. You're not against it or anything, though. You just haven't quite gotten it all, put in place. Sounds like.
And it's not really, it's not my first target. My first target is providing content that people actually want, listen to, and find value in. And if we do a good job about that, and that's all that ever turned up, I'm okay. Uh, when you get a certain number of subscribers, all of a sudden people start knocking on your door, and that has been certainly. Invigorating,
Hmm.
but I wouldn't say it's job number one. Job number one for me is to make sure I provide entertainment and information kind of in either order. So yeah,
Nice.
and
Nice.
have fun.
One of the questions I've felt compelled to ask, as much as I can't stand the topic, is about AI because everybody wants to
Mm,
talk about AI. So,
yeah.
do you in fact use AI in any part of your podcast, your production, or anything like that? And if so, how's that working for you?
Where I found it to be the most helpful is generating questions that people might not expect. And I use Grok, and I just do a deep search on what questions would you ask this person. And I don't ever like I don't want it to be scripted. I want it to generate some ideas. So,
Sure.
um, Ronald Reagan was the master. He was the great communicator. And when he gave a speech, he would list a bullet point on a or a series of bullet points on a 4x6 card. And there's a book called Reagan in His Own Hand. I strongly recommend it. And if you go read that book, you'll find out that there are actually photographs of the cards that he used with his scribbles in there and things like that. And the reason that he would have been the best podcaster ever because he just told stories. And so he would have a bullet point in a joke or a bullet point in a story, and he would just transition between those with filler words that sounded like, the Democratic Party is this and that and the other thing. And as a matter of fact, there was a farmer, and off he'd go into a joke or a story.
Right.
And and that's what I would really love to see our podcasting become rather than a scripted story. But AI is definitely helpful. It makes me think deeper.
Hmm.
It doesn't create I would never want to be reliant on it. The human
Nice.
element is so critical to what we do.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I love that. I appreciate that answer too. And I mean, the fact you brought Reagan into it, oh my goodness, with that voice
Yeah.
and the way he, comes up with a story and a joke for everything,
Oh man.
he would have been the best conversational style podcaster ever.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
just read a book by the book's named The President Will See You Now, and it's by a lady who was his executive assistant in the post White House years.
Hmm.
It's a fantastic study. It's a little sad at the end, a spoiler alert, but it's a fantastic study about being purposeful and intentional. Yeah.
Interesting. No,
Another strong recommendation.
Reagan in his own hand, I think I've heard of, but that one I haven't. And what was the name of that one
Yeah.
again?
The president will see you now.
The President Will See You Now. Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, good deal. I'll have to look that up. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But the AI questions, everybody wants to know a little something about AI, and everybody
Uh-huh.
wants to know what everybody's doing in it. So that's great.
Yeah.
Um, I hate talking about it, but I still have to ask the question. I'm just
Yeah,
one of
no
these old
worries.
dogs who I'm like, ugh, but I get it.
There's some
Uh,
new tricks out there still.
I'm hoping, I'm hoping we can find them. Um,
Jump spot jump.
right. So on your podcast, do you have a team that you work with? Do you farm out any of the the editing and things like that, or do you
Yeah,
handle all the stuff yourself?
I do have a producer. I have a friend who was he's a missionary kid who was trained with a university education in film. And it's a bit of a side hustle for him, but he is just fantastic. And if ever I look good, it's his fault. If ever I look bad, I better own it.
Nice, nice,
Yeah.
good to know. I am curious too, if I can go back to the books for a minute in terms of the
Yeah.
podcast also. Do you find that the podcast helps the book, or the book helps the podcast, or that they have some other synergy, between them in any way, shape, or form?
I think that I have to look at it in terms of a little bit more holistic. I speak from stages, and that is probably about 50% of what I do.
Hmm.
I would say that, and I'm not talking about revenue, I'm just talking about the time you spend and the effort you spend. I would say that about 30% is podcasting and about 20% is the books. And the reason I say that is that when you write a book, the writing is the easiest part. The promotion is the most, well, the editing. I mean, if you want to find out if your wife loves you, you should have her help you edit the book. And if she really loves you, she will be a homeschool mom, strict editor, and you'll find out. True story. I was writing Building Men. I'm done. It's been line edited. It's all laid out. It's ready to push send to go out to the publisher. Like push send, it goes to print. And my wife comes to me and she says, Jim, chapter 14, I think it's chapter 14. Let me check. Chapter 14 is the largest, most significant part of your life. And it's the worst chapter. You need to rewrite it. And I'm like, oh, no. This is like the worst thing you could ever tell somebody. And you know what? She was right.
He
And
was right. I knew you were going to say
she
that.
loved me enough not to let me look like an idiot. And I completely rewrote 14, sent it back to the content editor, sent it back to the punctuation editor, then sent it to the line editor and took another week and a half, and then got ready to punch send and didn't ask her.
She had one shot to give her input.
Yeah,
That was
one
good.
shot. But you know what? She made it a better book. And when you hear from people, it's funny because I get people that come back to me and they're like, well, when you said this in that chapter, and I'm like, oh boy, I hope I can remember that part of it. Because I'm two books beyond there now. So
Oh my goodness. That's great. And I got to give you credit for bravery on that one, to be honest.
yeah,
I'm not sure I'd be able to pull that trigger.
yeah.
I don't know if I want to know if she loves me that much.
I don't know, man. I'm pretty sure that she just wanted me not to look, she didn't want to look stupid for marrying me, right?
Right. That's what it really is. Yeah. Exactly. People
You're
are going
not
to come
going to
up to her.
you're editing this portion out, right? I've only
Yeah.
been married 45 years. There might be a risk here.
I love that. All right. Good advice for everybody. All right.
There you
Have,
go.
test your marriage, have your wife edit your book. There you go.
Yeah.
If your marriage and the book survive, congratulations. You're good to go.
Yeah,
No, I love
exactly.
that. I appreciate all the information you're giving us and the stories, and you are an excellent storyteller. I got to hand it to you. You know, I mean,
Well,
Reagan
thank
aside,
you.
you're an excellent
Yeah.
storyteller. I have a corny question that I ask everybody, and
All right.
I'm guessing we're going to get a pretty good answer from you here.
Okay.
In terms of doing the podcast,
Okay.
what is it about doing the podcast that you love the most, and what is it about doing the podcast that you just absolutely hate the most?
Wow. What I love the most is how much I learn from people. Oh my gosh. People come to me and they bring depth of experience. When someone says that they're a champion at something, odds are they're pretty good at it. And when they bring up sometimes they're talking about what a grind it was, sometimes they're talking about what very seldom are they ever talking about that dopamine moment, that Super Bowl win that lasted 38 seconds. And they're talking about the teammates and they're talking about the process and they're talking about the grit and the determination that it took to get this like huge Mondo win. And I love hearing those stories and learning from them. The part that I hate the least, or the part that I hate the most, shaving and putting on a collared shirt.
Okay. All right.
Hey, a
So,
little personal, right?
I mean, there we go. Definitely the first time I've heard that as
Okay.
a I hate. I mean, top five answers on the board, Family Feud style, right? It's
Yeah.
always, editing, promotion, these types of things. And I know that
Yeah.
you have a producer, who helps you with that. But shaving and putting on a shirt with a collar,
Collared shirt. Yeah.
brand new, brand new.
Yeah.
Absolute
Good.
first time ever. Thank you so much for the originality.
Keep
I
it
absolutely love it.
fresh.
Absolutely love it. It's fantastic. Are you a work from home guy at this point?
I am. I am in the process of developing a studio. This has when you do work from home,
Hmm.
the internet capacity is a big thing. Especially, I'm a Starlink guy, so I'm out in a little bit out in the boonies, and so we're going to be developing a standalone studio to be able to so we don't have to recreate the atmosphere every time. So
Hmm.
mine everybody tells me like, man, you've got an amazing studio that you work out of. I'm like, it's called a living room the rest of the time.
Nice. I
Yeah.
like that. No, it's those of us who are work from home guys, we're the ones who worry about shaving and putting on shirts with collars. So
Yeah.
that's what gave you away. So I was like, yep.
Well, I'm in my office now and it makes for a nice background and everything. It's a little busy, but here again, I mean, my biggest struggle is internet bandwidth because I we want this highest quality that we can possibly produce, and so we
Yeah.
don't have an opportunity for fiber to the home here. And so I'm grateful, Elon, for you giving me Starlink, but I wish it was a little bit more on the uplink side. So
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm sure he's working on
yeah,
it. He's working on
oh, I
everything
hope
else.
so.
I'm sure.
He's so worried about me that he's got to be right.
I'm sure he is. You're probably right on his list. So.
Yeah.
All right, Jim, I love this. I appreciate everything you've brought to the program today. Let me, as we kind of wrap this up, for the sake of time and everything else, let me just ask you one last question,
Okay.
and that is, what's your best piece of advice, or hey, multiple pieces if you have to, if you can't narrow it down, for podcasters who are just simply not quite where you are yet?
Hmm. Wow, I can look back and I can and at one point I was kind of curious as to if this was gonna take off, if this was gonna be, if people were if I was bringing value. If you're
Mm,
questioning whether you're bringing value, I would say that add consistency. That's what I found. Um, Podcasting occupies an inordinate amount of trust. People are trusting you to actually be there at the same time every week or at the same time every other week or at whatever your pod if it's a daily if it's a daily and you say you launch at 6 p.m. then at 5:59 you better be checking to make sure you're launched because people are trusting you. And so as I look at podcasting, this is the new press.
mm,
We bring unfiltered reality into people's lives, and they rely on us. And so we have a sacred trust. It's been in large part violated by the mainstream media. And so that's
Hmm.
why they're not trusted anymore. I mean, if you just, and it doesn't, right or left doesn't make any difference. They're all speaking from an agenda, and our agenda should be to provide what we promise to provide our folks. If I come to you and I bring you a loser and you're looking for a champion, shame on me.
Yeah.
Unless there's a story, a championship story that comes along with that loser,
Right.
and that could happen too. So, and I'm not casting dispersions.
No.
I'm saying people trust you. Deliver what their promise is. Yeah, find your why. Here we go again. Cultural revival blueprint. Find your why and deliver it. Yeah,
Nice.
there you
Nice.
go.
I appreciate that. And that's great advice. That really is. And I know a lot of people are listening to this entire interview right now, probably chuckling along with you and me every once in a
All
while, but
right,
I'm sure they're getting a lot out of this. So
let's
uh,
hope so.
I appreciate you sharing everything, big time. Um, any parting thoughts for the world out there, all our podcaster listeners, anything like that? Anything you want to throw out before we close the door?
Every time I close a show, I say, keep on living, keep on, keep on seeking those Grampian-sized dreams. And I would say the same for your podcast. If you're not thinking big, you're probably thinking wrong. So go for it, man.
Grampian sized dreams. Love it. Great way to end
Yeah.
for us. All right. Goodness. Speaker, author, podcaster, CEO, Grampian to 18. Uh, Jim Tracy. Thank you so much, Jim, for being here today, for sharing everything you have, and just for being you, brother. I appreciate you.
Rory, my honor, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Folks, this has been another awesome episode of the Podcaster Nation. And why do we have such awesome people on here with such great messages? Because this is the podcast that's about podcasters, it's for podcasters, and it's done by podcasters. And I think we show it again one more time that this truly is the place where the rising tide raises all ships. So keep sailing.